Share Shootout brought to you by Lion of Africa Insurance, insuring South Africa's future.
This is match day number 22. Welcome to the most vicious stock picking show on television at Share Shootout League. I'm Bruce Whitfield and you're watching CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. Now, which shareholders have been more likely to support AngloGold Ashanti's restructure if they had more meat on sticks at the previous shareholders meeting? Did the economic freedom fighters join the National Assembly just to spend time walking out of the National Assembly? And in the light of Alibaba's listing last week, can the JSE expect Kalahari.com to list soon? Now, we don't know the answers to any of these vexing questions. What we do know is that Sasha, #Bucks, got his friends, his fans, and even his colleague Paul Theron to mob Twitter with votes. It was a tough one, saw loads of votes coming through for both Sasha and K Live, who's, of course, Clive Ramatibela Smith. Sasha narrowly won that round and bagged 3 points in the process. Let's see how it changes the league. If you have a look there, Sasha now only 3 points away from running dog, who is Gary, of course, and Nick the value guy. For K Live, the loss is a small setback, but he's still tied on a giggle and 6 points with 3 other players and still in with a fighting chance as well. Now, by following at SSO League, you get a chance to decide the winner of this match and the winner of the entire league. If you tweet any of the hashtags right now, like right now, we'll even count the vote, even before we start. It's that kind of crazy on this show. Back to tonight's match. It's a battle of experience and wisdom. The combined working age of our next two players can rival some of the best financial institutions, not only in the country, but in the world. I give you a battle of the wily old foxes. Let's check out the players.
Yeah. So I've got to look like it's very important stuff we're doing here. Absolutely. Chris Gilmore, investment analyst with ABSA Wealth and Investments. Investment philosophy is very simple. Buy quality, get paid for holding it, and rarely, if ever, sell. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm getting some cheeky emails here. I think we'll keep that a secret for the time being. I don't want to show my hand just yet. Biggest competitor is the famous Sasha Narushkin. I think so, and I think maybe it's a bit different from previous times. I think the mind is going to be more concentrated now.
Sid Vianello. I'm an independent investment analyst and investment advisor. I like looking at themes. I devise themes to suit the particular investment climate, and I try investing in companies which fit into whatever theme I believe is appropriate for the business cycle at any one particular time. At this point, I don't have a game plan. This is the first time I'm in the competition, and I would say I would probably end up devising a game plan as we move along and as I get a feel of how things are developing. At this stage, I would simply say Sasha, simply because he's the longest serving member on the team, and he is a very experienced and very successful investment advisor in his own right. I wouldn't have entered if I didn't think I had a good or a reasonable chance of winning it. At the end of the day, it is a game and we all here to have fun, but deep down, we all want to win it as well.
Both Sid Vianello, the independent analyst, and Chris Gilmore from ABSA Wealth and Investment Management are tied on 6 points. Chris Gilmore still struggling to get over the excitement that surrounded the independence vote last week and appears to have made a bizarre commitment to wearing his kilt until William Wallace rises again. Just have a look at that magnificent outfit. Chris Gilmore, what has a Scotsman got worn under his kilt?
Aye, there's nothing worn under there, laddie. It's all in perfect working order.
Aye, I like that old-fashioned joke. But the fact is, you are, I think, still dressing like this almost a week after the referendum in protest about not being allowed to vote.
No, you're right. And I think it was
you need to get over it.
Very short-sighted of them. But no, look, I'll get there.
You'll get there. Well, yeah. It's a lovely outfit. There's a chance to break free and get a 3-point gap. Whoever wins today will be on 9 points with Sasha. It stands a good chance at a semi-final spot. So who will outfox which fox today? Will it be the man in a kilt or the man in a tie? Who's the real deal? And who will see what these guys are made of. But first, the house rules. Most of our stock pickers have pre-picked 3 shares. Only I know what they hold. They've each got 30 seconds to convince the other stock picker of the value of their share. Now, stock pickers can choose from the JSE. We give them an offshore allowance as well. Are there any companies left in Scotland from which to pick, one wonders? But they do get an international stock per round. Those are the rules. They're out of the way, and we'll see who's left mopping up the studio floor with the blood of the other. He is armed, said Vianello. He carries not only the dirk on his side, but he's got a skin dew in his sock. Be very careful.
I'm more worried about that thing on his side because
it looks treacherous.
He could behead me.
He could behead you. It's blunt. I've tested it, so I think we'll be absolutely fine. Chris Gilmore, I'm going to make you go first, simply in true reverence to your great outfit. This is called Share Shootout League. You're going for an exchange-traded fund. Does it count as a share? It trades like a share?
Yes.
Can we treat it like a share?
It's traded the same way as any share.
Okay, so we'll let you do an exchange-traded fund. In 30 seconds, you're going in-house, you're going to ABSA, and you're going to a Paladium ETF. In 30 seconds, tell me why.
It was a toss-up between palladium or platinum. The world economy is moving forward slowly, and both China and the US they're seeing their motor manufacturers actually moving ahead quite nicely. And they need autocatalysts in both of these. Palladium has quite a big advantage, a big price advantage particularly over platinum, especially when it comes to diesel, which is where the interest is in the light vehicles these days. So I'm going for this one. It's a lot cheaper than platinum, and I think if you look at the graph of how it's done this year, it's moving up nicely, and I think will continue to do so for some time to come.
There we go. The ABSA, what is it called? The new ABSA? Was it the ABSA new Palladium? What's it called? The ABSA new Palladium ETF?
I always get a little bit confused in the nomenclature, but you're a new Palladium, I think is what it's called.
Okay, new Palladium. Do you like the new Palladium ETF?
My only concern with the Palladium story is that the price has run a lot already. And remember, investing in any metal fund, there's no dividends. The only capital growth you're going to get is if the price of the actual metal goes up. Mm-hmm. So we've got to take a view as to whether the price of, in this case, palladium, is going to continue rising to the extent it has been rising up to now. And we don't really know. Chris's arguments about palladium becoming a preferred metal, because it is still cheaper than platinum, and I understand that palladium, I think, is used more in diesel engines rather than petrol engines. Mm-hmm. And that there is a move towards diesel engines and this sort of thing. I mean, there are a lot of arguments that suggest that palladium is the metal, the preferred metal over platinum.
Great. So accept it then, or not?
I'm taking a gamble if I accept it because I've then got to reject the next two.
Yeah. Well, the next two are quite interesting.
You can accept all three if you want.
But there are some other reasons, as will become more evident later, why I would probably accept it.
Okay, so you will accept it.
I will accept it.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering, we're going hither and thither with that one, but your ETF is accepted, Chris Gilmore. So the ABSA new Palladium ETF, going long on that one. Let's go, Sid Vianello, to your first pick this evening. You're going into the construction sector.
That's correct.
Which has been dramatically unloved, severely punished, demonized for the last 5 or 6 years.
100% correct.
Why would you go into Murray and Roberts? In 30 seconds, tell me why.
Very simply, because Murray and Roberts has gone through a transformational change. And the way I see it is moving away from construction into the particular area where it did extremely well over the last 20 years before previous management took over and then messed it up. And that's into engineering, design and construction or erection rather than building roads and what have you. It doesn't mean they're pulling out of the roads, but when I see the oil and gas area where they're concentrating and I see Mozambique ahead of me, and I see the experience in Australia,
and we see the Karoo,
I'm very happy to go into it.
Okay, Murray and Roberts, it's an interesting pick. Good Scottish names there. We've got Murray and Roberts. Used to be run by Brian Bruce. But he I think that's
who went to the same school as I did.
Did he?
Yes, he did. He was a few years ahead of me.
No, of course he was.
And there was a Welshman who was the CFO of him, Mr. Rees, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
What do you see?
No,
it's all from your part of the world.
Isn't he the gentleman who passed away recently?
I don't know.
Anyway, we digress.
I'm not sure.
It's lovely, thank you. We will do obituaries on the show at some point in the future. But for now, let's focus on buying or not the shares. Murray and Roberts.
It's a tough one. I mean, Sid makes a very, very good case here. And I have to confess, if you get the construction companies right, and you know, it's going to be a long haul, I think, for any of them. But I take your point, and I think Henry Last has done a fantastic job in terms of rejuvenating this company. He inherited a real mess, not just in terms of the collusion and stuff like that, but in terms of the intrinsics of the company. I'm tempted to accept this one.
You're tempted
You
to.
just don't know what the other two are going to be.
The other two are beauties. They really are. But is this the best beauty at the Bell this evening?
Well, I tell you, I only like two construction companies. One is obviously Marion Roberts,
Yep.
and the other one, which on this show previously I've called as well, and that's Rabex,
Yes.
for different reasons.
Well, Roberts is road building and all the infrastructure
It's
play
not
and all
really
of that
road
sort of
building.
stuff.
I mean, they involve in maintaining
Yeah.
roads, and because government hasn't got money to build roads, my thesis is government's going to have to spend money refurbishing and maintaining roads, and that's where I think where they come in. Marion Roberts, I've given you the reasons why.
Yeah.
I particularly like their story.
You're going to take Murray and Roberts, are you?
I'm going to accept Money and Roberts.
Okay,
That's a
but
nice
how
story.
long do you have to wait for this one to come to fruition? You talk about it being a long haul. Is a long haul in Scottish terms 307 years, or is it 2 or 3?
No, and Sid makes a very interesting point here. Murray and Roberts and many of the other construction companies are having to go offshore because I think the phantom infrastructure program that we have in this country has yet to be seen to be tangible, you know. 800 billion, I don't see it, I really don't.
Yeah.
But I do see it in the rest of Africa. Sid's talking
Trouble with the
particularly oil
800
and gas.
billion, it's been the same figure for 5 years.
Yes.
Which by inference could mean one of two things. Either they spent absolutely nothing, or they're spending 100 million a year and putting in another 100. But 100, or whatever the figure is then the figure. It's not 800.
Yeah, whichever way, they've changed their strategy, and I think they've done it very cleverly.
Murray and
It will
Roberts gets
take
the
time.
thumbs up.
Yes, I think so.
There we go. Chris Gilmore, on to your next pick this evening. And this is one that is the most astounding South African story. Started by an Israeli almost by accident, by virtue of the fact that he came here on holiday and didn't have anywhere to stay, so he stayed in Hillbrow for a couple of weeks, kind of liked it. And Asher Bobot has become a great acquirer of businesses, a great consolidator of the technology sector, and is looking at the United States with a great deal of interest, but at home keeps making huge revenues and decent profits off those revenues as well. EOH in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's my preferred IT stock by a huge margin. You mentioned Asher Bobot. I spoke to him 10, 12 years ago out in the East Rand where they have their headquarters, and he said the global spend on IT, and this was just after the IT bust, is going to carry on at a multiple of global GDP growth regardless, well into the future, because it has to, because it's an enabler. And I went to the presentation yesterday. It's an unbelievably successful company. And I mean, compound annual growth of 44.5% in earnings over the past, 15 years. And it just keeps on going. We keep on saying it's going to run out. It's not right.
Okay, but at some point it does run out. At some point it hits a speed bump. We saw Pinnacle hit numerous speed bumps this year, for example. A tech company that could do no wrong. I'm not suggesting for a moment EOH goes down the same bumpy path. But companies do run out of runway eventually.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they've got 134 locations in South Africa. They're now represented in 26 countries in the rest of the continent. And the rest of the continent, by Jove, they are actually beating us in many, many areas of IT. And I think these guys are latching onto that move, that there's a huge demand and need to get into that whole IT space for so many companies and individuals in Africa.
Sid, there's a lot to love about EOH. Is there enough to dislike about it to shoot it down?
As an investor, on principle, I don't like buying high PE companies, and I'm become reluctant when companies expand a lot through acquisition. I mean, you cannot deny that EOH has done a phenomenal job. You cannot deny that the profits are there. You cannot deny that the growth in the earnings and the growth in those profits is there. I've just, but as you get bigger, the base gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and to be able to carry on delivering the kind of earnings that is required to maintain the kind of PE that it's on
25 times
becomes a little bit tricky for me. And I know a year ago I said exactly the same thing. That's not on this show or anything like that. I said it from an investment perspective, and of course I was proven to be wrong.
But it's okay to be wrong.
But
As long as you're not wrong all the time. As long as you're right this time.
my brokers were telling me I should buy Pinnacle or EOH. I actually bought Pinnacle. Thank heavens I got out of it, and I actually got out of it and made a tiny profit on it, so I didn't actually lose any money on it, but I should have been in EOH. But the bottom line is, I don't like those high Ps, and I just feel that perhaps we are getting to the kind of ceiling level that you were talking about just now.
It's a sound investment
and that's
thesis.
why I would turn it down.
It's a sound investment thesis, and people have lost a lot of money by not investing in high PE shares over the last 5 or 6 years, because it has been a high PE market. But is it a bubble that is about to pop? I don't know. You're shooting it down. You don't like the high PE. 12 months from now, we may regret it, but it is shot down on EOH. Remember this day, Chris Gilmore. You Scots got long memories. You'll remember this day, I suspect. They've got very long memories.
In a year's time, he may well be doing exactly what my brokers are probably telling me right now, that we told you so and you should have been in it. But
and Scots have got long memories. Elephants, Scots. They're related. Okay, then let's go, Vianello, to your second pick. This is an interesting one. Very low PE. Now, a lot of people put off by low PEs because it suggests that there may be something fundamentally wrong with the company or fundamentally wrong with the sector. African Rainbow Minerals is in a tough sector. Great company in a tough sector. In 30 seconds, why is it a buy at 9 times?
Very simply, because the reduced earnings that's coming next year, and that's for sure, it's already discounted in the price. If you write that back, you're probably still looking at a P of about 10. Obviously, you're not going to maintain the low P it's on at the moment. But there's going to be a big turnaround in copper in Zambia, where they lost a lot of money last year, but they're only ramping up to full production right now. And as I said to you when I was talking about palladium, their platinum interests are among the best in the industry. None of them are underground mines. They're all surface mines. And I see a lot of growth in their platinum business, and when I put all that together...
30 seconds are up, but that's why you like it. Now, this is a tough one for you to shoot down, Chris Gilmore.
It's a very tough one to shoot down, I must admit. Look, it's been a great performer in many ways. I mean, in terms of the fact that they've got quality assets, and I agree with Sid. I still think they're, the fact that they have this great preponderance for iron ore is going to hold them back. Not just that, it's failed, in my opinion, to capture the interest of investors. You know, it's never quite managed to actually get either locals or foreigners really enthused about it, which is strange. And it's been around for quite a few years.
There's probably
now.
a reason for it, because 44% is owned by Motsepe.
Which is Motsepe.
And there's no reason why Patrice has got to sell one share. There's no legal requirement for him to sell a share, unless he wants to improve the liquidity, of course. But he's obviously elected not to do so, because he presumably likes what he sees.
Okay.
Now, we've looked at it on a number of occasions, but we've tended to go for the likes of Billiton or Glencore. And if I want the exposure to copper, I'm rather going to go for Glencore.
Yeah, look, it's my third one. I actually own those two as well. So it's the third one of the mining stocks that I own.
Okay.
So you can work out from that the one that I don't own.
There we go. He doesn't own Anglo-American, and he doesn't own Anglo-American simply because there's too much hard work to do, and there's too much uncertainty around platinum, and there's too much uncertainty around the future of that particular business. But you like African Rainbow Minerals. You like it, but you prefer others more.
I prefer others, yes.
There we go. So you're shooting it down.
Fair comment.
There we go. You know, everybody's been so civilised. If only the referendum in Scotland had been as fair and as generous as this is turning out to be. But hey, the heat, we'll turn up the heat. We'll turn up the heat. Will the Scot outwit Maverick, or will Maverick prove just too cunning for the Scot? We know that you have the power to decide, and it lies in your hands. So you use the hashtag, either Maverick or hashtag the Scot, and we'll see you after the break when we'll revisit what they have done so far and get into some fairly cunning stock picks in the final round. You're watching CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. This is Share Shootout League, the only league where match fitness weighs absolutely zero. Remember, this is match day number 22, and through your Twitter votes, one of our stock pickers will join the big boys club. Now, you follow at SSO League, and you vote for either Maverick or, not Braveheart, what's the other guy name? Oh yes, the Scot. Let me name the shares this evening. Let's go with what the Scot has chosen. Chris Gilmore from ABSA Wealth and Investment Management. ABSA, new Paladium ETF, is sucking up to the bosses, but it's one that Maverick likes enough to pick it. So he's accepted the Palladium ETF. EOH Holdings, lovely business, nice consolidator of the IT sector, just too expensive for Sid Vianello's taste. For Sid Vianello, he's a big fan of Murray and Roberts, and that is one that Chris Gilmore has accepted, mostly because it's got two Scottish names in the title. And then African Rainbow Minerals is not one that he likes as much as he likes BHP Billiton and Glencore. So he shot down the pitch for African Rainbow Minerals. Sid Vianello into the final stretch. What, in 30 seconds, is GKN?
It's a British engineering manufacturing company that manufactures components for the aviation industry, amongst other things. But the big area for growth for GKN right now is performance-related motor cars. They make a lot of the components that go into performance-related motor cars, and that the talk around the world is that's going to be a big growth area. You've seen that people like Maserati want to increase production from 6,000 to 60,000 cars a year. A lot of Mustang is coming back on board. All those things are going to use GKN parts. Plus, the weakness of the pound, which is probably going to persist because of this whole Scottish thing, is good for exports.
There we go. So the Scots get credit then for exports
Exactly.
of GKN.
Exactly.
It's one you have to accept on that basis, don't you?
GKN, Guest Keenan Nettlefold is the name going.
Very good.
Yes.
10 points.
Good company. Thank you very much. And
Points don't mean anything, by the way, but you get 10.
but Sid, in terms of the kind of earnings over the past few years, I mean, what have they exhibited? Has it been strong?
Probably like most British manufacturing companies, it's had ups and downs. But it's reached a point now where we are seeing the trends in the industry, the trends in the areas where they, where their expertise lies. We're seeing the growth in those areas, like the performance motor cars and things like that.
So the Bugattis of the world and the Maseratis of the world and all of these
when
guys.
I see the Maserati story, and I know there's a lot of controversy about it because Ferrari don't want to go that route, and of course they're made in the same factory. And when we see the Mustang coming back on board, and we see these high-performance cars and what have you, and we see that GKN are big suppliers of the many of the components that go into them, I just like it's like re-engineered itself. They're also big in the aviation industry. They work with Pratt & Whitney, which of course is part of United Technologies.
And Sean Connery, when he was James Bond, drove an Aston Martin, which is a performance car, which
Which
could
is
have
also
GKN components. So you've got to accept it.
No, look, I think it's a little bit too capricious for my taste.
Big words.
I hear where you're coming from, Sid, and look, I think engineering companies and the motor industry generally in Britain has had something of a renaissance. They built more cars last year than they did in their entire history.
Well, the one manufacturing brand that we didn't mention is Jaguar. I mean, Jaguar under Ford and his predecessors was a mess, but under Tata, it's actually become the cornerstone of the Tata group of companies.
But they've restored the prestige of Jaguar.
You're just saying that because you drive a Jag.
Well, that's 15 years old now.
It was made by the last lot.
It was made by the last lot. It wasn't made by the new lot.
Are the new Jags as good as the old Jags? Because I mean, proponents of Jag, it's like having an MBA. People tell you, I drive a Jag, or they tell you, I have an MBA. Are the new Jag models as good?
I don't know. I mean, I don't own the new models, and I haven't driven them. But what I do know is that when I look at where Jag's going, and I look at they are going the performance route.
Okay, nice one. So you like GKN, you don't like it enough, you're shooting it down.
I'm afraid so.
Because it's an English company. That's why. Right, you've got to get over it, Chris.
Well, maybe they got a factory in Glasgow, for all we know.
Not that I'm aware of, but you
I
could be
don't
right.
make anything in Scotland anymore other than haggis. Okay, so let's move on, Chris Gilmore. And whiskey.
And whiskey, absolutely.
Yeah, but Chris Gilmore doesn't drink whiskey, so it doesn't count. City Lodge. In 30 seconds, I'm interested to know why you're going all cheap a hotel room on us. In 30 seconds, tell me why.
Number of things. I think the outlook of the economy here is pretty dismal for the next few years, and I think you are going to see City Lodge picking up a lot more in the way of corporate business where companies are actually trading down. Lower end of the market, they experience a lot of pain on the Road Lodge side because a lot of the SME companies just are not travelling. That's got to come back at some point in time. But I think the big thing for City Lodge is their move into the rest of Africa. They bought out their partners in Kenya recently, and that I think is only 6% of the business. That's going to double fairly quickly, and I think the occupancy is locally going to start rising, and it's money for jam once that starts happening.
If only they get their weekends sorted out, because then they get their occupancies up. They're sitting on low 60% occupancies, which is fine. You make money out of it, but with nearly 40% vacancies on a weekly basis, That's a little bit concerning.
My biggest problem with City Lodge is in fact this occupancy issue, which is it's now climbed back to 64. But I can tell you 10 years ago, Chris, it was actually 82, 83, 85% at one stage.
But they had far fewer properties. And there was far less hotel space.
No, absolutely. But of course, that's what we have now, and that's what we've got to live with. The other thing that is starting to worry me, because I mean, I've always liked City Lodge. There are two issues that worry me. Number one is this expansion to Africa. It looks as if it's been centered around Kenya, and I'm very worried about what's going on in Kenya with the tourism industry.
But this is a business hotel concept. It's not a tourism concept. But business ties Kenya booming.
I know, but the fact is you've got this tourist thing, and it does have an impact on the entire country. That's one of the issues that worries me. The other issue that worries me is the tradability of the stock and the inability of the stock to move from an investment perspective. And I own the shares, so I mean, I've been watching it. The share is kind of range bound between, sometimes it gets as low as 116, 117, it gets to 124, 125, and it's back again at 120, 119.
We need to get those. We need to get that performance coming through to drive the share price to 150.
I have this problem, and that's the reason why I'd shoot it down, because my gut feel tells me, as good as the business is, I'm not going to make money out the share price.
You're shooting it down. That's where you have to leave it. You don't even have time to defend yourself on that particular point. We'll be counting the votes until midnight on Sunday. We give you more time than the Scots gave themselves. These guys need your votes. So follow at SSO League and vote for whichever one of these two entertaining gentlemen impressed you the most, or for whatever reason impressed you the least, vote against them. That's okay as well. Whether it be the kilt or the tie, we don't ask why. Hey, we just count. You count, we all count. We want to count your votes. Match day 23 right here on CNBC Africa. Next Tuesday at 8:30, Sasha, #Bucks, will take on Matthew, Chi-Town, in a merciless stock picking show on TV. Till next week, do stay cunning. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.